Well, South Africa today marks Human Rights Day. President Jacob Zuma earlier led national commemorations in the Eastern Cape. Today we remember the victims of the 1960 Sharpeville massacre, where police shot dead 69 people during a protest against the country's past laws, which were used to control the movement of blacks, coloureds and Indians. But a number of racially motivated incidents in the country over the past year once again throws the spotlight on combating serious human rights violations. 2016 saw schoolgirl protests over hair and language policies and allegations of racism at some schools. And the Mpumalanga coffin incident, where two men forced Retha-bile Mlotshwa into a coffin, sparked outrage. Well, to chat some more on the huge significance of the day for contemporary South Africa, we chat to Nicolas Wolpe. He's the Executive Director and founder of the Liliesleaf Trust. Good afternoon, Nick, and thank you for sharing your time with the public broadcaster.
Correctly, good afternoon, and good afternoon to your viewers, and it's a pleasure to be on.
Nick, very quickly, give us some historical insight into what the day means to a liberated South Africa, and tell us why it's so critical that we preserve this part of our rich liberation heritage.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head when you highlighted some of these atrocious events that have happened over the last year in South Africa. And I think it highlights a fundamental problem that we're not in connection with or connected to our past and having an understanding of our past and where we've come from. You highlighted Sharpeville, the killing of 69 innocent people. And I think that event highlighted at the time the significance of the struggle and what it was trying to achieve, the atrocities of the apartheid regime and the way they barbarically treated the majority of the population. The struggle that we undertook was to rid our society of that very form of behavior. And the intolerance which we are now seeing today is almost a kind of a step back into the past, a step back to the days, not of apartheid, but of a lack of appreciation and understanding and tolerance. And I think Human Rights Day is extremely important.
Just on that point, Nick, there was a great deal of expectation on post-apartheid South Africa to be a vociferous leader in the civil rights arena. Is this an expectation that we're adequately meeting at this point? We have in cases muddied our image a little bit. For example, with that coffin incident that went viral on social media.
Well, I think we're not meeting the expectations of our people. We're not achieving what the struggle was about. And I think one of the problems is that one of the critical or most critical documents which articulated the essence and the fundamentals of what our struggle is about, the Freedom Charter, is not being applied. We hear the politicians often talking about the Freedom Charter, the clauses of the Freedom Charter. But unfortunately, there is a gap between the talking and the implementation. The rhetoric does not match the implementation. And furthermore, we are in a psychosis at the moment of forgetting so much about what our past and what happened in our past, that if we want to hold on to the meaning of our own Human Rights Day, we must also ensure that we do not forget the past. Because, again, one of the important aspects is, in order to understand why this day is so significant and what it means to us as South Africans and why we must remember and acknowledge it, we also must ensure in the process that we understand what that struggle was about and what we were trying to achieve for all South Africans.
And Nick, it is interesting that Oliver Tambo once said in his quote that the demon of racism must be uprooted in its totality as it brutalizes entire peoples. And Tambo made this comment in 1961, the year of the Sharpeville massacre. But more than half a century on, we still have this deep, the highest inequity indices, one of the highest in the world, where our income resource opportunities are not equally distributed. How do we best nurture and sustain a strong human rights culture when this divide between the haves and have-nots is so glaring at this point?
Look, I fully agree with you. It's all very well talking about these soft issues about how we must embrace the past. We must hold on to the meaning of what that struggle was about in terms of what we wanted to achieve and how the Freedom Charter was the essence and core of it. But yes, you're right. Unless we start to address the structural impediments in our economy and start to address the huge economic disparities that still exist, for a lot of people, this is mere talk. It is not a reality for them. And some people argue in the current society that we find ourselves in, or the current conditions, with them struggling to survive on a daily basis, how can we start to talk about the essence and meaning of our struggle and the notion of human rights when there are so deep-seated fundamental imperatives which have yet to be addressed? I mean, prior to me coming on air,
I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there. Nicholas,
on land reform.
Yes, Nicholas, I'm afraid we'll have to leave it there. We are out of time. But thank you so much for sharing your time with us on the SABC News Desk. That was Nicolas Wolpe, the Executive Director of the Liliesleaf Trust, joining us on the line from Johannesburg.